Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 BlackICE. Okay, just to get something out of the way here quickly, I played, I don't know, but probably would have been half of an episode, and the war started, but there was no opportunity for me to guarantee the independence of Poland. No event popped up or anything, and I've not played Britain before with this, so I don't know whether this is BlackICE, or which I suspect it is, or just Hearts of Iron 4 that may be coded for that to only pop up if it's an AI. Just don't know. I didn't want to justify war goals against Germany, so be playing this. Chinese workers and peasants, Red Army declare war on reorganized China. Chinese workers and peasants of the Red declare war on part of Japan. Okay. Well, that is different. That didn't happen in my last little playthrough. So you have communist outbreak. That's pretty cool. That very likely would have happened had or yeah, something like that. Okay, large tank factories, good. Now that we're getting close to the war, we're going to focus a bit more on combat type technologies. Okay, let's see. Marian Rejewski sends an Enigma machine to the Allies. Marian Adam Rejewski was a Polish mathematician and cryptologist who in 1932 worked out how the plugboard equipped Enigma machine, the main cipher device used by Germany, encoded messages. The success of Rejewski and his colleagues jump-started British reading of Enigma messages in World War II. The intelligence so gained, codenamed Ultra, contributed perhaps decisively to the defeat of Nazi Germany 5 weeks before the German invasion of Poland. In 1939, Rejewski and his colleagues presented their results on the Enigma decryption to French and British intelligence representatives shortly after the outbreak of war. The Polish cryptologists were evacuated to France, where they continued their work in collaboration with the British and the French. Okay, excellent. I have a bit to say on this. I agree that this is a critical element in the outcome of the war in two aspects. I feel like talking for a while on this, so if you don't want to hear this, jump ahead 10 minutes or something. I don't know. One aspect that I am sure of is it shortened the duration of the war. Because of the intelligence gathered by the Western Allies, they were able to plan much more securely what to do, how to develop things. And like recently saw a documentary on some of the intelligence war in North Africa, that for a while Rommel had a very, very good source of information, and the British through Ultra knew about this, and that he was getting plugged into some really good sources on how the British were operating and what was going on, and all of that kind of stuff. So while Rommel was getting this, is some of the reasons for his success. He was a very good general, but he was getting this stuff, and the British were working out, trying to figure out how Rommel, who is the spy, how is he getting his information, and sort of long story short is they eventually did figure out how he was getting his information. He You see, before the Americans entered the war, they had an American liaison operating in Alexandria, I believe it was, as opposed to Cairo. I believe it was Alexandria. And the British were almost daily briefing this American officer, who was an liaison officer. And, telling them, because they wanted to show that we're still in the fight, and we still have this many tanks, and we still have this many men, and these units, and here they are, and this many aircraft, and here, I mean, they were giving them briefings, minimum weekly, but almost some of the stuff daily. They were giving the briefings, and so he was taking his notes and writing up all the information on what the British were doing, and then promptly letting the Germans read it all. Now, he didn't know that, though. He wasn't a spy. He wasn't a traitor. He was a good American officer. What had happened is the Italians had burgled, I think it was in Rome, but it was somewhere the Italians had burgled, maybe it was some other trade or some other legation, but I'm pretty sure it was in Rome. Burgled the American embassy, got in there, got into the safe, photographed the code book for the diplomatic codes, because he was sending them via the diplomatic codes, not some military secret codes. It was the secret, yes, but the diplomatic codes, and it was universally same codes used for everybody instead of like a special one just for him. So they got it, photographed it all, put the stuff back in the safe so that the Americans didn't know the Italians had the message, or had the stuff. So the Italians were reading these briefings by the British, informing the British, or informing the Americans both that, hey, we're in the fight and we're doing all this good stuff, plus these are our deficiencies, we need these more tanks or more aircraft or whatever, and all of that stuff. And so that was all promptly going to Rommel, so it gave Rommel confidence. The British found this out. He kept sending for a while, because I don't know if the British quite told the Americans everything on that, but figured out what was going on at some point. Then it shut off, and then for a while Rommel, this was a little bit before some of the Tobruk stuff, Rommel shut down for a while because he was waiting for the information. His source stopped, so he no longer knew what the British were doing, so no one gave him the confidence. So knowing what the enemy's going to do will allow you to plan better. But the other, and that was shorten the war, knowing what where the Germans were, how big a force you need to go into D-Day or whatever, so shorten the war. But more importantly, I think Britain could have lost, not necessarily been invaded and lost that way, but because Britain had so much good information, at some point they realize there is going to be no major land invasion of Britain. Because, once Sea Lion is basically postponed indefinitely, they're not immediately attacking Russia, because that's basically in mid-late 1940 that happened. So in 41, they're confident enough that Britain isn't in imminent danger of invasion to be able to send divisions and equipment to fight in the Western Division on a scale that I think, don't know, is larger than they would have if they were unsure of Germany's actions. When you can see a lot of what the enemy is doing, you're more sure of what you're doing. And I could sort of explain it as, like when I play BlackICE, which obviously I am, but for Germany and Hearts of Iron 3, I know in, around June-ish, in 1944, if Britain is still a thing, there's going to be a D-Day-like invasion. I know it is randomized, but higher percentage chance near to the historical location. Lower down here and lower way up here. But there's going to be an invasion. So I can just leave minimal forces, because if I totally leave everything, and the AI does figure it out, they will maybe invade, at some point. But if I leave just minimum forces here, and if I then plow everything into Russia, so long as I can get back a force by the 1944 date, I can meet that scripted invasion. Similarly, if I know that the way things are going, there's going to be a torched invasion, I can move some units down here, so I'm never going to be caught off guard on those scripted invasions. That's sort of what I would account the you know, the Ultra Code, or you know, the Ultra Secret, or Enigma to being. Now, just, I don't know if how many are following it. My friend Revolver Held for German graphical augmentation mods for Hearts of Iron 3 is developing a bunch of scripted invasions, and he just slightly before making this episode announced that he has scripted some invasions for Portugal and for Spain. Now, I noticed looking at the code, you have 4 different, if you're the invading country, you have 4 different choices for a scripted invasion. And I don't think, and there may even be a check on the code, I don't know, for the scripted invasions for if it's AI or not. I haven't looked at the stuff. He hasn't published anything, but 4 options. Now, it could be 4 strengths, but I think it's a I'm guessing it's a randomized list. That the AI will, hey, you know, maybe 25% chance on each one of these 4. So it might be 4 different locations, 4 different strengths, but these only will go off, will be an invasion is if Portugal or Spain joins the Axis, and I presume other conditions. I don't know. He hasn't said. I sort of don't want to know too many details. And I know he's also looked at stuff for Norway and some of the other stuff. So I hope there's a certain amount of randomization. And it can't even be, you can't even have a invade this year, yes or no, and you know, under certain conditions, and have it like a 50-50 chance. And then if there's going to be like an invasion of Norway, you know, 50-50 chance, you can code it up this way. And he's a very good coder, better than I am. But he could code it up that way, that then, okay, yes, there will be or not, you know, for the AI. So this way it keeps the human player not knowing if or when. You gotta have base minimum conditions, but if or when there's going to be an invasion, you know, have a random chance, and then, okay, there is, but is it going to be down here in the south or way up here in, you know, Narvik or some other sort of place like that? And so that sort of forces the German player to go, hey, I've got to defend all of Norway, or I could have a bunch of British armored divisions here, and you land enough of British armored divisions up here, you can create a nice little, you know, pocket that's easily defendable. And Germany's going to have a hell of a time dislodging, especially if they still have to have some fighting going on in other major fronts. So yeah, so the Enigma machine is really important. Now, I've read, and I think I've talked about this, or maybe it was on the episode that I killed. I've read Montgomery of Alamain's book. He wrote a book on the history of warfare. Very good book. I would recommend it. Hang on, people. You want to skip ahead? I'm gonna go and Google it up and see what the title is, so I can give it to you. But I'm not gonna really pause this. So let me look it up. And if you don't know, Montgomery does have a title. He is the Viscount Montgomery of Alamain. That is his actual title. He took the title of Alamain. So he is Montgomery of Alamain. He was ennobled after the war. I believe it was after the war, but at some point. This book he wrote was after the war. Legacy, honors, okay. Sorry about all of this. And of course, you know, I couldn't remember the title. Whether I should have or not is another thing, but the title is A History of Warfare by Montgomery Valmet. And he definitely does cover World War II in it, but it is really a history of warfare. This is, again, I think it was maybe in the last episode, or maybe it was in the previous episode. I do sort of know a bit about him by reading his book and his thoughts and his viewpoints. And he writes about World War II. Well, when the book was written, I don't know when Montgomery learned about Ultra Code. He definitely, no, he was, I think, if I remember correctly, the first North Africa commander, field commander, to be told of the Ultra Code. And because this caused problems for some of the earlier, previous to Montgomery, some of the commanders, they were given information that, oh, Rommel's going to attack, or Rommel's not going to attack for 10 days, or whatever. And they started going, yeah, no, I don't trust that. Yeah, we're gonna attack now, we're gonna retreat, or whatever it was. And so the commanders in the field were disregarding the really good information because they didn't trust it, because they didn't know where it was coming from. And they weren't, you know, the Ultra Code people were allowed to give the commander the information, but not the source of the information. Oh, we're listening to all the radio intercepts between Rommel and Kesselring or whoever else as theater commander, and we're getting all the reports, and we're getting every single thing that he's saying to them and they're saying to us, and this is what we're telling you. They weren't allowed to know this. They were just thinking we got this information. And so the commanders weren't trusting that. So that is, you know, some of the reason why Montgomery, I do believe, did a bit better than some of the others, is because he was given that, where that Ultra information was coming from. He did know. And so that's how important Ultra was. Extremely important. And that is one of the reasons why human players do so much better than AI, and this is because we know what is coming. Historically, and with events and that kind of thing. Because I know there's going to be a war with Germany here. I don't have to wonder. Okay, as I said, we're getting ready for real combat. Okay, no, I'm gonna wait for partial, or either war economy, probably not, but partial mobilization and do that. Next, I'm gonna save up my political power, and I know just we want to do that. I want trucks, just so that you do know, for transport motorization, if you do not have enough, your motorized units can actually move slower than your non-motorized units would move. I'm not talking about tanks or reconnaissance armored cars, I'm talking about your transport type motorization. You just don't have enough, you're gonna go really slow to almost stationary. Yeah, heavy machine guns. The drop pack, so it's coming. It just happened, what, a few days, a week or two. Yeah, let's. I think we have enough in storage. Let's upgrade the better quick firing 18 pounders. There we go, instead of the older 18 pounders. Production. These torpedo bombers, will convert them to the Swordfish. So it looks like the war may be starting a bit early, maybe not. Mechanized offensive. I may be coming back for that, but let's look around here. Let's just do this. France bans communism. Approved infantry fighting equipment, good. That's this. Okay, war economy. Or at war. Well, maybe we'll just wait for that, and we be costly. So let's just wait on that. Maybe there's a national focus that I miss for guaranteeing Polish independence. Was there? That could be something here. Gosh, I'm just curious about this. Rearmament. I'm not seeing it. Okay, Operation Ultra. Ultra was the name used by the British for intelligence resulting from the decryption of encrypted German radio communications in World War II. The term eventually became the standard designation for all intelligence from high-level cryptic analytic sources. The name arose because code breaking was considered more important than the highest security classification available at the time, most secret, and so was regarded excuse me, as being ultra secret. Much of the German cipher traffic was encrypted on the Enigma machine, hence the term ultra was often used almost synonymously with Enigma decrypts. High-level intelligence produced at BlackICE Park, codenamed Ultra, is credited with having provided critical assistance to the Allied war effort and with having shortened the war. Although Ultra's precise influence is still being studied and debated, we will gain decryption against Germany. Yeah, and as like I was saying earlier, about Montgomery, when he wrote his really good book on a history of war, and it starts back at literally the earliest written records of warfare. I mean, way back, and moves through the eras of war, and obviously more modern. There's more information because obviously we have more information. But so he's doing this stuff, but see, he has to talk about World War II without mentioning that, because when his book was written, the whole ultra thing was still a ultra secret, and so a lot of early historians didn't have that in evaluating Montgomery as a general, or Patton, or Eisenhower, or anybody else. They didn't have that information, so that changed things. So people are it's still reverberating that I mean, it's, what was it, in the 80s that it was finally released out publicly, that Ultra had happened. All the stuff before then is just in the dark from that. Okay, Military Intelligence Section 6, MI6, the UK Foreign Intelligence Agency, weeks before the outbreak of World War II in Warsaw, Poland. Outbreak of World War II in Warsaw, Poland's Bureau, Cipher Bureau, revealed its achievements in decrypting German Enigma ciphers to the French and British intelligence. The British used the information as the foundation of their own early efforts to decrypt Enigma. The first wave of government code cipher school, GCCS, moved to Bletchley Park on the 15th of August 1939. That would be right today in the map. The main body of GCCS included its naval, military, and air sections situated on the ground floor, together with a telephone exchange and teleprinter room. That's another interesting thing. I don't know how many of you are aware, but if you know, and maybe it's almost such an old technology, a lot of you are younger, don't even know about it. Fax machine. Fax is short for facsimile machine, and it's to make a a copy of something in another place. Well, they had back in the 30s, and I'm not sure exactly when they started in the 30s, but in the 30s they had fax machines or teleprinter. And what it was is that you would put your image, often like a photograph of a person, on a roll of paper around a cylinder, and then it would spin, and it gets spinning at a certain speed, and then there would be like an optical sensor that would take a reading, on one little point of it, of it was only for black and white, but what the how dark or light or whatever that spot is, and then transmit it basically over phone lines. It could theoretically be over radio, but over phone lines, transmit that information to another machine that was also spinning at the same rate. That would be in essence a printer that would print that, and it would do sort of newspaper quality type photos at best. So if you're looking at you may be familiar with the sort of aerial photography that they did during the war, and they would look at them through very high-powered double magnifying lenses and be able to see all these little details down in the stuff. It was nothing like that. You'd have to blow that way up if you wanted to, I don't know, to transmit across the Atlantic a picture of a V-1 rocket ready to launch or something like that. But it just sort of, in modern definition, sort of a crude thing, but enough if you're trying to, identify a suspect or something like that in a criminal cases. So a lot of the major police departments in the 30s, like the New York, Chicago, LA type police departments, would have a teleprinter in there. For high level business, the different like phone company and whatever would have some offices that you could use it, but it was very rare, sort of high end, and they definitely had those way back in the 1930s. Just sort of showing that things were different then, but they weren't so incredibly different. A kitchen and a dining room. Well, we're continuing. Top floor was allocated to MI6. The prefabricated wooden huts were still being erected. Initially, the entire shooting party was crowded into the existing house at stables and cottages. These proved too small, so Elmer's School, a neighboring boys' boarding school, was acquired for commercial and diplomatic sections. Okay, so they really were going after the intelligence. Okay, we've got our radar boost. Now, we know the war is coming. 70 days home defense, 70 days. Fortify East Asia, Mediterranean Basin, Bastion. Develop New Zealand, 70 days, that's... That would be nice. Research bonuses to fighters. Limited liability planning land. Annual rule. close the waves. Nice, that would be helpful. Fortifying Malta. I think we might have a little bit of time before the Italians get in, so let's... Let's do air rearmament. And we have some free production facilities. How are we doing for our current production? Good, it looks like. So yeah, we're producing more of the trucks. So... Oh, one thing I want to see, did I switch over? Aircraft too. Yeah, we're doing this other one, flying boat. Well, let's produce a couple of truck factories. That should be a quick boost to truck production. If we can do that, that would be nice. Another way of boosting trucks as opposed to simply just plunking down more. Military factories. The artillery factory level 5 is reached, good. Small arms 9, good. Yes, okay. Let's move O'Connor's unit over to here.
Ready to move.
Oh, I stuck them with the wrong.
Hold in. Attention.
There we go. There should be with them.
Move out.
Yeah, he's back basically guarding our escape plan. Anti-tank upgrade, great. Okay, there's human rights is justifying wars against us, okay. Well, let's come back down here and unlock another tactic. I don't know how well I'm doing. I'd love your feedback, but one of the things I hope with these series that I'm making is that you are very interested in, shall we say, what happens next. You know, when the episode ends, you go, hey, well, what happens next? So you come back. That's sort of my goal and an objective. And I'm sure some of you have probably at least seen the thumbnail for it that I ranted about Kaiserreich. Well, that was because basically I got to the point that I had to end that series, and I'm still really frustrated by that even after a day or more, because although, you know, I am sort of telling you a story as this thing going along about the history, about everything that's going on in the thing. So I want you to be involved in the storyline. And if I keep chopping it up and I'm thinking, do you want me to read all of the descriptions again for the starting of Kaiserreich again and pay attention to them, or just, we've done that, and just click through it? I think it's sort of lost something. That's why I'm sort of pulling back from it for a while, because I think you're sick of it. I think I'm sick of it. I don't know for sure if you are, of replaying Germany starting Kaiserreich again. And I am very happy and do want to present other games as different companies allow me to you in a few stories, few segment story arc, just to sort of give you an idea of what that game is. If it's super popular, hey, I'd love to continue playing some of the stuff, but if not, no problem, because I'm just trying to show you what a particular game is. If you're interested in it or not, you can determine that. But with these type of things, I really want this to be a nice, full, and interesting series. And so, I hope I'm achieving that goal of and I know this series, the episodes can go sort of longish, so you're maybe ready for them to the end for the day, but I do hope you're like looking forward to the next day of, well, what happens now? Do I get out of the pocket of Dunkirk and retreat, or whatever it might be, or do we hold the line against the Germans, or what are we doing here? So I hope that's what I'm achieving. Okay, the 15th Scottish Division was mobilized between late August and early September 1939. The Second World War began 2 days later. The division was mobilized for full-time war service. The division was serving in the Scottish Command alongside its parent, 52nd Lowland Division. The 59th Staffordshire Division, Motor Division, was created on the 21st of August 1939 as a second-line territorial army duplicate of the first-line 55th West Lancashire Motor Division. Very good, jolly good, as they say. Okay, now what I want to do here is find these units. They are somewhere up here. Okay.
Come on!
I think they're both going to be pretty good in the sense of well laid out.
Move out!
Okay, and of course we are... Well, the question is, I don't know how much we're risking the safety of Britain by sending the army to
Ready!
France, because we're going to have the Royal Navy, which we are sort of building up, and air power and that kind of thing, that we may be able to successfully protect Britain from an invasion while we rebuild whatever we may lose. The 38th Welsh Infantry Division was created as a second-line unit duplicate of the 53rd Welsh Infantry Division. Jolly good. And okay, that's here.
Ready to move!
Send you over to Cardiff here. Or are we already in Cardiff? Well, we were already in Cardiff where the port is. Okay, first of the month save. Poland refuses German ultimatum. Okay. Germany has ignored every warning.
On it!
Alright, it's fine. We'll leave those there. Okay, Vickers water-cooled machine gun. And of course, look, I do know that this is a game and not reality, and they need to make things for the game, if you will, to make it a game. And I'm not talking about Hearts of Iron 4 here. I'm talking even still about BlackICE. And this is going to be a little bit of a thing. Maybe a rant? I don't know. But, okay. I don't know how much you know, but I presume most of you do, that these titles in Hearts of Iron 4 are purely cosmetic. meaning every one of them is the same for every country. The only way any of them change or are modified are through the variant system, okay? And otherwise they're all bog standard. There's no difference to them, so it's just what it is. And then they just sort of like, oh well, let's come up with flavor names, so that it's sort of, it's at a machine gun, heavy machine gun level 2, it's a Vickers gun. This is a Lewis gun, okay? This is a Vickers K machine gun team. Vickers K weren't ground mounted guns, I don't believe. I could be wrong about that. Now I do know, before you start saying something, I do know the Vickers K was used by both the Long Range Desert Group and the SAS as a vehicle mounted machine gun, which obviously drove around on the ground, and may have been mounted on some others as standard, but I don't think so. But I don't ever think it was used as a independent ground mounting gun. You could have. Don't see why the hell you do that with a Vickers K. The Vickers K is basically the same thing as a Lewis gun, which I wouldn't consider a Lewis gun as a heavy machine gun. It was a light machine gun, people. So now I don't know who's doing the weapons here for right now. I know here rifle number 4 Mark 1, and that's the earlier Enfield. That's the 1914 field. Huh? Yeah, I know. I haven't looked at this before. I really looked. Okay. My brain's hurting a little bit here, people. It just is. Okay. Forget the. This is the only picture that's even remotely right here with these guns. And excuse me, even though I'm complaining here and sounding all pompous and know-it-all-y, I'm not. I had a good friend who was a big Enfield collector, and he had basically every model of Enfield except for one of the various first Lee Medford guns, or one of them. I mean, it was like, I mean, it wasn't a huge, but it was like a 15, 20 gun collection. Not every single, because there were different manufacturers. Not every single manufacturer, every single little teeny difference. No, but just all of the basic models of the gun as it went on. But Britain basically entered the 20th century with either the SMLE or a similar sort of gun, and it looks basically like this. It's like we expect Enfields. The pattern 1914 Enfield looked very different. It was, and I don't know all the details exactly why, but it was not the gun, and then they made this. This was basically the gun, and then they made the 1914 Enfield. Now, of course, why this is a Sten gun here, and then this is a rifle mark number. Okay, I was going to say, but I can't say. Again, flavor names, and I get the flavor names. But, and this is probably presumably all that these are, which is sort of painful, because I sort of hope BlackICE would, like they are doing, but I guess you would, well, yeah, I guess you sort of have to create a British one of these. But, okay, since you've introduced Sten guns, without saying what I was going to say, I would go with the the bullpup thing that Britain did immediate post-war for some of this stuff. That's not where we started at. And let's get back over to here before we go into it. So what I'm talking about is, yes, we have, and you see it says WC for water closet, a toilet. No, water cooled. The Lewis gun, and again, if you're going for flavor names, fine. The Lewis gun is not and has never been a heavy machine gun. It is specifically a light machine gun, designed by Lewis as a light machine gun. If you're looking for an early heavy machine gun for the British, it'd be the Maxim gun. They actually bought a bunch of Maxim guns, not the MG08 Maxim gun of the Germans, not the 1910 Maxim gun of the Russians, but the sort of original Sir Hiram Maxim's gun made by in association with the Vickers Armstrong, Vickers guns. Now, starting in World War I, the Vickers gun was the standard gun of the British Army. So that should be up here, or if you want it down here, you should start with this tech. If you're going to call it the Vickers water-cooled heavy machine gun, you should start with the tech pre. Because I get the idea of the game, and part of what we're supposed to do is click on these things as research. But either give them the research bonus of a Vickers. Oh, and if you don't know, a Vickers is a type of Maxim machine gun. Basically, they, and I'm not a good mechanical person, but basically they sort of took the, and it was in conjunction with the Maxim, because Maxim is a, Sir Hiram Maxim is an American, if I got that right. But was working, the early Maxim guns were made by Vickers Armstrong, I believe, or the Maxim Company, but it was based out of Britain. But then it got associated with the Vickers Armstrong. I'm forgetting all the details. I read a book on this. I have a book called The Devil's Paintbrush. Really good book by the company called Collector's Grade, is the name of the publishing company. Book called The Devil's Paintbrush, and it's on the history of the Maxim gun. So I've read it, big thick book, but it's many years ago and I forget the details. Is basically the same mechanism of a Maxim gun, but turned upside down. And they did that and a few other changes to make it basically the lightest version of the Maxim gun, and it's called the Vickers. So it's different. It's the same basic thing, but it's different and it's a bit lighter. So if you're looking at the heavy machine guns of World War I Germany, the Maxim gun, which is a wonderful machine gun, but it's god-awful heavy. You want a similarity to that, that would be the Maxim gun for the English, because they did buy a bunch. And if you look at them, like the Maxim guns for the English, they have all the brass. Sorry again if I'm going too deep in all this, but all the brass pieces on the gun, because early manufacturing techniques that they were doing just coming out of the 19th century, it was easier to make them in cast brass or whatever than steel pieces, so it was actually a cost-saving device, though it looks nicer. Later on, they got better with steel stampings and other steel stuff, so that's why by the time you get to the MG08 Maxim gun that Germany uses, adopted in 1908, they were all steel affairs by that point. So if you wanted to, you could do the early Maxim gun and then the Vickers gun, but give the Vickers gun to the British. Now here they went with, well, what do we do now? And so yeah, if you want to adopt somehow the American M250 cal, fine, but that is not what these are. And so these are just place names. So either give them the bonuses or change the names. The Vickers K, again, the Vickers K was basically a aircraft machine gun. it had a it, it wasn't belt fed. It was a round magazine, a round magazine, a like the Tommy gun, but it's set on top, sort of like the DP machine gun of the Soviets, or like the Lewis gun. You may be familiar with it, goes on top. The Vickers K, and one of the reasons the early long-range desert group used a fair number of Lewis guns just because they were available. They liked the long-range desert group really liked the Vickers K because it had a super high rate of fire. So when their bursts would shoot a lot of bullets out. But you have to it gets hot really quick. So there is that problem. It would not make a good heavy machine gun. Now they did make a heavy Vickers 50 caliber machine gun that was water cooled. That was not the Vickers K, and it was almost as powerful as the American 50 caliber, but it was water cooled and super heavy. And it was, again, sorry if I'm going into too much detail, but it was one of its primary uses was in the Vickers light tank. It's the 50 caliber. It's actually 55 caliber, but it's a shorter cartridge, so it's not as powerful as the American 50 caliber. Used in the Vickers light tank and some other vehicle mountings, but it was super heavy. I mean, big heavy water jackets and things like that. So, is do something better than what you're doing here, people. I guess that's my big point here is if you're going to do flavor names, well, match them up, or what you should be doing is just because you have well, I didn't really want to do that here. Is you have here, I guess I'm going to cancel this, of course, doesn't harm anything. Is you have defense value, soft attack value, reliability, those kinds of things, and just I would have Vickers guns would be higher defense value, say, than a MG 34. We'll convert over here because they're set up for sustained fire much better than the MG34, so you can sort of turn them on and just keep them on, and they just keep firing as long as you keep feeding bullets into them. Basically, a Vickers or a Maxim gun will more or less, not quite, but you can turn them on and they'll go for days, literally. There was a lot of testing in the early Maxims, and they would shoot like 10,000+ rounds without ever stopping. They'd be able to, as they were feeding the belts, and they'd hook the belts together. The cloth belts that they were designing, they would be able to hook them together. So as they got near it, so they never even paused. They just basically turned that gun on and let that gun fire to sort of prove that it could do that kind of stuff. So you can just turn a Vickers gun on, and it ain't gonna overheat if you keep the water fed done right. And so it's really good at that, but maybe less soft attack than the German model, because the German model is more flexible, so you have more soft attack going after the enemy, more going that kind of thing. So you can tailor it to the specific models, but I presume they're not doing that. But it just sort of makes, as a small arms guy, as you can tell, it makes my head hurt a bit. Okay, call to arms request from Poland. Yes, we will accept that. Okay, we did that, and we will invite them to join our faction. Yes, and we will I guess do this. Now, I'm sure that they just haven't. Now, see, here, they just didn't change the photo yet, or the image, but, since you've introduced submachine guns, you should get rid of those and put in different, similar looking. I guess, I don't know. If you're trying to, I don't know. You can go with the Australian jungle carbine. That was sort of the last hurrah of the infield rifles. Okay, well, let's start out with putting fighters up over. Okay. Although they're not getting very good coverage. Because I did sort of deploy them forward to quite possibly. But they are such short range. That's... this is like way too big of an air zone. I know in one version they made them smaller, but I think they've gone back to bigger because maybe they got too small of air zones. They really need to divide this in half. And then these would work so much better. I know these are relatively short. We're going to leave everybody else on the ground. What do we have? Those are fighters. 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 Okay, well. Won't accept our offer, so we are. No, we're not putting up fighters everywhere. Okay. Despite the war raging for several months now, no it hasn't, just started literally this moment, Regent Prince Paul still refuses to declare for one side, even continuing to trade with Germany while observing strict neutrality. While their support for Germany is probably not immediately critical, we must decide if we want to allow them to support a country that we are actively at war. Yeah, we'll put pressure on them, I guess. The 23rd Northumbrian and the 42nd or 46th Infantry Divisions, was motorized infantry division of the British Army that saw active service in World War II in France. 40 Infantry Division came into existence. Second line. Okay, jolly good. The 18th East Anglia Division. Propaganda broadcasts. Lord Ha Ha was the nickname of several announcers on the English language radio program Germany Calling. I'm not sure if that's a true statement. Again, I'm saying I'm not sure because to me, Lord Ha Ha is the guy who the political party steer straight. And I'm just blanking on the name. I know it. Yeah, he was a British Nazi who had a British the main sort of Nazi party, which was the steer straight party. This is different than the British Union of Fascists. I'm blanking on it, but maybe they used other people. But that was the main guy. Broadcast by Nazi German radio to audiences in Great Britain on the medium waves station Reichssender Hamburg, and by shortwave to the United States. The program started on the 18th of September 1939 and continued until the 30th of April 1945 when Hamburg was overrun by the British Army. The nickname Lord Ha... Oh yeah, William Joyce. There it is. Generally refers to William Joyce, who was a German radio's most prominent English language speaker, whom gradually came to be exclusively applied. However, it also applied to other broadcasters, mostly at the early stages of war. Okay, so yeah, okay, that's all. I just didn't get there because I know William Joyce. That was the name I was looking for. He broke away from, he and another guy, and I forget the other guy, who stayed in Britain, broke away from the British Union of Fascists and started an out-and-out National Socialist Party in Britain. I think didn't even, maybe got 1/10 of the mass political support that the BUF did, but it was very small. Their sort of symbol was a old ship's steering wheel kind of thing, you know, the wooden cog thing. It was steer straight or steer right written as part of it. And at some point he flees, and I forget the details, but he flees, I think before the war started, he flees to Germany. And they eventually lock up his, and I think it was over, the reason he flees is over missing money for the funds that he may have embezzled. Okay, we're going to gain unity. Let's see, I don't know who that is. That's Leslie Howard. That is Vivian Lee. That is Ronald Coleman. And that's Basil Rathbone, famous for playing Sherlock Holmes. Don't know who that is in the background right there. Not registering with me. Okay, well. Okay. France is calling in its various colonial possessions. I'm sort of leery about having them as independent countries, as it were, that BlackICE is doing. Large fighter factories. Infantry Matilda 2 is good. Okay. Now, request from the British. Yes, we will accept that. At this moment, I don't see a good reason Romania wants to provide 18 medium infantry trucks times 4 on a monthly basis for convoys from Romania. How interesting, Romania. For the moment, that looks like a relatively safe convoy path. We're Britain, so we're going to have lots of that. Yes, South Africa. Like I say, I don't see a downside of keeping them. Australia, yes. Keeping them neutral. They will be obviously able to shift their economy to a more war economy, which of course is, generally speaking, a good thing for us. Even though we're doing a lot of other attacks, we're going to get excavations to keep supplies coming in, or resources, I should say. Just got a lot of political power, so let's there are total mobilization. I think this will be good enough for now. Why do I say that? Well, political gain, we still want to do some of that. Civilian factory speed, we may want to do some of that. I don't know how much. And it's good enough. Well, so you notice it reduces the amount of recruitable population. We're already sort of being, we're just going to go to war economy, which will reduce even more our, and so we're going to have to change some of these things here, like that. We'll have to change that once we get to a 2 or 3 year draft. Or service by requirements or something. But this should really help with our production. And no, we as Britain are not in a place to invade the West Wall. Great, great. And infantry trucks, yes, we will take that. And we need to upgrade upgrade our tank production. Now, whatever. You don't probably want me to rant on about some more things already, do you? I could. And yes, I do know to some degree these are just flavor names, but... And I know BlackICE, I know Panzeroo, and he has, I'm sure, and I'm not saying I know any specific, but I'm sure he has big plans for what he would like to do eventually. And some of it is just going to take time. And Warsaw's already... Oh, well, let's slow this up. So that... And I knew France just wasn't going to be able to get through this wall. But by having us at war here, I know Poland's still going to die. I'm not doubting that at all. But by having us at war just means that Germany has to keep some more forces over here. Okay, Polish merchant fleet arrives. With the fall of Poland, a significant number of Polish merchant vessels arrive, having escaped Nazi capture. Actually, there may be another event. 3 destroyers got out. We jumped up there. That got out to Britain. Okay, I think we're pretty good. Not that we don't want to do things like sniper team. Oh, that's only 15 days. Let's do that. I'm going to use O'Connor's force here to try to hold some sort of northern part of the line here once it comes down. Yes, basic infantry trucks. I don't yet have flavor names for those. The reason they're sending that is they realize through their little AI that that's what we have a deficiency of. So that will help out a bit. Surprised Romania. Well, no, Romania wanted to be friends with Britain, but Poland has capitulated. Yes, dark times indeed. Rearmament. Okay, well, good. Oh, research and decryption methods, bizarre mission. 70 days. Okay, that is. Research your land doctrine bonus, that's nice. How long is that? 70 days. Fortify East Asia, we can still wait on. Mediterranean Basin, I think we can still wait on. Is there, most of our options are 70 days. Let's do this because we can. The Tizard mission very well may help us get with the United States. No, committee, secret well, now let's do that. That might be able to do the Hawker Hurricanes as carrier fighters. Much research cheaper. We have some radar coverage, that's good. Okay, mentioning that. They're sort of maxed out there, obviously. They're maxed out. Well, let's go with Alexandria here. Some sort of Eastern Mediterranean radar up and going. Okay, this is all one big state. I know this is a ways off, but yeah, we can wait till mid-40 or something. I don't think Japan's jumping in before that. Well, one thing, quite honestly, maybe somebody you know, but and there's a lot of aspects, and you know, I've been playing this game a lot. I don't know how well radar in this game spots naval vessels and things like submarines, you know, land-based units. But so we'll do that. Not going too wild, but getting us some radar coverage. While mentioning all of that, let's get some of our Navy out there going. Western approaches, let's convoy escort there. Umber Force, we'll get that as convoy escort. I don't know if we're going to be doing too much there. And Northern Patrol. Let's get them out doing basic sort of patrol looking and what we can identify out there. And the North Fleet, we're going to try to shut down the English Channel with that. Those are all just recent built vessels. Reserve Fleet, which we're going to leave as the Reserve Fleet, but we'll put this Channel Force out as well on a search and destroy type mission. And we'll throw the Portsmouth Fleet out as a convoy escort fleet here. There we go. Hopefully that will help us with dealing with various elements of Britain and its naval defenses. Ross say, I don't know. USSR occupies eastern Poland. Okay. Not unexpected. Okay, continue to improve Bletchley Park listening stations, the Y stations, such as the one in Quicksands, at Quicksands in Bedfordshire, and Bew Manor Hall in Leicestershire, the War Office Y Group HQ. Gathered raw signals for processing at Bletchley. Coded messages were taken down by hand and sent to Bletchley on paper by motorcycle courier or later by teleprinter. Bletchley Park is mainly remembered for breaking the messages enciphered on the German Enigma machine, but its greatest cryptographic achievement may have been the breaking of the German Fish High Command teleprinter ciphers. Intelligence produced from the decrypts at Bletchley were codenamed Ultra. Yeah, we already know that part. Contributed greatly to the Allied success in defeating the U-boats in the Battle of the North Atlantic, the British naval victories at the Cape Matapan, and the Battle of North Cape. Yes. I mean, I talked about sort of the strategic importance of what the Ultra elements did for the Allies, but there was also, if you will, the tactical. The German submarines would report, "Oh, hey, I've got a milk cow." You know, a supply submarine. I'm here at X, you know, coordinates somewhere. and some of you want to come and get resupplied, kind of thing, or whatever, or they broadcast that out, and then the Allies through them would know, oh, that's where there's submarines. So one, they would, this is in a tactical sense, they would start sending the submarine or the convoys away from those locations. Seaborne radar, that would be very useful. Let's go with that. And then send vector in various sub-hunting, whether aircraft or ships or other things, into the region. So it was used tactically as well as strategically as to where to send divisions. Romania cedes Bessarabia to the Soviet Union. Okay. Soviet Union claims Bessarabia, sort of out of order, after messaging forces. Oh, well, this is just the general, maybe, I don't know. As sort of suspected, we're just all sitting here in the phony war. Okay, elections, wartime exemption. The United Kingdom is in a state of war. Normally, an election would be held at this time, but being in the midst of an important conflict, many argue that it cannot afford to spend time political campaigning or a change in leadership if that should come about. Meanwhile, others claim that declaring the ongoing war as a valid reason for skipping elections is the first step towards eroding British democracy. After all, letting military matters take precedence over the people's influence could be a slippery slope. That's interesting. Didn't know that that was a real sort of thing. Because, unless they pass some laws, and maybe some of you know this better than I do, but you don't have to hold elections at any time in Britain. You just don't have to. Generally speaking, the convention is generally every 5 years from the last election. Generally speaking. But, like recently, Theresa May thought she had a great chance to increase her majority, so she called for early elections. Now, the Conservative Party still won the elections, but they lost seats because she is no Margaret Thatcher. I don't dislike her, but she ain't no Margaret Thatcher. And I understand why people that support Brexit are a little upset with her, and I understand people who want the remainders that want to remain in Britain are even more upset with her. So I understand why she's not terribly popular in Britain, whatever your political viewpoints in Britain are. But she thought she was going to get more support and didn't. So so it's the technically it's the monarch who calls for the elections, and it's easy for the monarch to go, no, we're not going to do it. Through elections will be held as usual. No, we're gonna do this, though I don't necessarily agree with all of it. Okay, well, we're gonna end the episode here right now. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. I do appreciate it. And as they say in YouTuber school, gotta say, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I want to thank you so much for watching. Even if you're not subscribed. And of course, please post questions, comments, suggestions, corrections to anything that I'm saying. I do appreciate that. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.